Hey guys, welcome to BP the Bible Perspective. Another reaction video to my favorite, or one of my favorite ex-Christian turned atheist, Christy Burke. Her claim, God doesn't value me. My response, you are the value of God. Now before we unpack this, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. Now, one of the reasons why I respond to Christy, the videos, is because they caught my attention and I have been listening to them. And I think she puts together a very compelling argument. So I like her videos. Obviously, I disagree with them. I think she is disingenuous in her presentation. And if I wonder why she is doing all of these videos, like all of her videos on this particular channel, is to really dismantle the ideology of God, the thought of God, the thought of the Bible. But my question is, why? Remember, she comes to the table as an atheist. She doesn't believe in God. She once did, and now she doesn't. So now, why take the time to try to show, or let me say this, I believe that her motive, like a lot of the ex-Christians, atheists that we see on YouTube, that their motive is to try to show the world or her audience why it is futile to believe in God, why it's silly to believe in the God of the Bible. That's why. Now, I believe she knows she's not going to reach everyone, but her channel is growing. She had a nice audience and growing. And so would a lot of the ex-Christians turned atheists. They have nice followings. Their channels are growing. So this labor is not in vain. But I still want to respond. So I'm going to play her video, and then I'll come back on the other side and unpack it. Here we go.
If something is valuable to you, you don't just toss it. And that's exactly what God threatens to do if we don't obey him. As a non-Christian, God plans to eliminate me. And even if he annihilates me, even if he just snaps me out of existence, he is showing that I hold no value. Because if I did, he wouldn't extinguish me. So to tell me that as a human being, I am intrinsically and objectively valuable, and that's because God created me and God is the one that gives me my value, well, God doesn't treat the things he values very nicely, because he demands that they worship, praise, and adore him, and then threatens them with eternal damnation if they don't.
All right, so before I unpack what she said, I want to read one verse. This verse she knows well. Remember, she comes to the table as an ex-Christian who now doesn't believe in the existence of God. So even though it may sound like she's talking about, or put it like this, or condemning God, right? Remember, she's condemning the ideology of God, the thought of God, because she doesn't believe he exists. But if she can dismantle the ideology of God, then she can reach her audience, her target audience, to show them why following the Christian religion, reading the Bible, is silly. It's not logical. But in response to her argument, she knows this verse extremely well, one of the most celebrated verses in the entire Bible, John 3:16. For God loved the world in this way. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life. Now, I want you to have that thought as we unpack her video. I'm going to come back to this verse and tell you why I think this single verse refute her entire argument. Let's get back to her video.
If something is valuable to you, you don't just toss it.
Well, she's forgetting the story of Adam and Eve. God didn't toss man. Adam rebelled against God. He intentionally sinned against God, despite the fact that God valued him enough to create him in his own likeness, gave him an entire planet, gave him a garden, and a wife, a companion. And with that, he rebelled against God. And when he rebelled against God, God didn't just destroy him. And he could have, couldn't he? He could have just said, hey, you know what? This model messed up. Let's destroy Adam, start over again. But he didn't. So keep that in mind.
And that's exactly what God threatens to do if we don't obey him. As a non-Christian, God plans to eliminate me. And even if he annihilates me, even if he just snaps me out of existence, he is showing that I hold no value.
But she's forgetting one point. You're rejecting him. He's not rejecting you. Now, remember, Genesis 1 tells us, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's the first statement. So it first starts off by saying God, the declaration, God, and then he creates everything, which means the earth, the heavens. This is all his creation. You're rebelling against that. God is allowing you to rebel against that. But keep this in mind. Now let's suppose, for the sake of argument, that we become friends and she invites me over to her house. I'm not talking about anything inappropriate. I believe she's married and I'm married. But let's just say as friends. She invites me over. Hey, come over for dinner. She doesn't have standards, rules. And what if I go over to her house and I become very, I behave in such a way that is so inappropriate, so out of character. Like, let's say, for example, and without even knowing her rules, I'm pretty sure I just couldn't like urinate in her living room. Just right there, just urinate in her living room. I'm sure I just couldn't like say, you know what, I'm just gonna go and jump in her bed and take a nap. I'm sure I just can't take things out of her house without her permission. In other words, she had standards. And if I begin to behave in such a way, will she not tell me you're behaving inappropriately? You're behaving in such a way that this we don't like this. Please stop. Now suppose I then don't stop. Will she then ask me to leave her home? Will she demand that I leave her home? If I say to her, you don't value me because you won't let me do what I want to do in your house. Remember, it's her house. You see, so when she says that God is just going to toss me because I don't believe in him, well, yeah, it's his rules. It's his house. Now, we're not going to go and certainly do a deep dive into why God is rejecting sinful man, wicked man. She's forgetting, and maybe the bubble she lives in, the community she lives in, is great. But she doesn't have to go far to see how wicked men is, to see how evil men is. This world around her, how evil it is. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that? God did deal with it. God did deal with how wicked man is. And despite how God dealt with it, man was still wicked. All right, let's go.
Because if I did, he wouldn't extinguish me. So to tell me that as a human being, I am intrinsically and objectively valuable and that's because God created me and God is the one that gives me my value. Well, God doesn't treat the things he values very nicely because he demands that they worship, praise, and adore him, and then threatens them with eternal damnation if they don't.
She really seems to, in some of the videos I watch, she really seems to not like the idea that she has to worship God. I'm going to give you a little thought on that in a moment. But how I want to respond to the idea that God doesn't value her simply on the basis because she can't do what she wants, right? That's kind of what she is saying. Let me go back to my verse, John 3:16, which she knows very well. For God loved the world in this way. He gave his one and only Son, so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. Now, if I use the example of her home again, being invited to her home, I would have to kind of meet her standards, abide by her rules, right? In other words, whatever they are, I would have to abide by them. And then if I don't abide by her rules, I would not be welcome in her home. So when she's trying to make it seem like that God is just arbitrarily rejecting her when she's forgetting to say she is rejecting God. To me, what's sad is what exactly is she rejecting? So when he says here, God loved the world, how does he not love the world? Well, God demonstrated his love for the world. In other words, this is not just lip action. Not only it is said that he loved the world, but this verse tells us the quality of this love. He said, God loved the world in this way, he gave. So he stopped right there. He loved, he gave. Now, she may not like it. She may reject that. And ultimately, I think that's what's really going to come out with atheists is that they hate the ideal of God. It doesn't matter how good God is. See, God is demonstrating this act here of giving his Son demonstrated forever his love for the world, for the sinner. So she has to reject that. But here's what she's rejecting. Here's what sinners are rejecting. That God loved the world so much that he gave his only Son. So now you look at the value of the gift that he gave. What was it? His Son. And what this tells us is that God gave the very best gift he could give, which was his Son. He gave the very best. He could not give a better gift than his Son. And that tells us how much he valued us, because I would suppose that God could have given or created some, new creature to bear the sins of the world. Wasn't even on the table. He gave his Son. And by the way, his Son willingly came. And so what this tells us that the value that God has for us is the same value of his Son. Now, she criticized this in another video where he killed his Son. Well, he gave his Son for you because he valued you as much as he valued his Son. He valued you that. So he valued you. He valued the world as much as he valued himself. That is the value. See, that is the value. That's how much God valued you. And he demonstrated this one act forever. It is demonstrated. So that's why I say she is the value of God. That's what she's rejecting. That's what she's hating. Okay? She hates God for that. All right, guys, that is my perspective. Don't forget to like and share this video. And please, if you have any comment, add them to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. and I will see you in the next video.